Hello, this is Neville continuing our 29th reading of the New Testament guided tour. This is Matthew chapter 26. Probably because we're looking at Matthew chapter 26 from verse 26 through to the end, we'll maybe call this the communion. Getting back into our reading then. Now as they were eating, Jesus took bread, and after blessing it, broke it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many, for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink again of its fruit of the vine, until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." When we sit down every Sunday and we partake of the Lord's Supper, I want you to know that Jesus is sitting down with us in the kingdom, and He's taking it together with the Father as we take it down in this world. That's in Acts chapter 20 verse 7. When you ask yourself, what is the reason for the disciples coming together, or for the church coming together on the first day of the week, Acts 20 verse 7 says it is to break bread. So I take the Lord's Supper every single Sunday, as the Bible and as church history clearly tells us the early church did every single Sunday. So if you don't take it every single Sunday, I need to ask you, why not? You know, that's what Jesus asked us to do. That's why we are the church, and there's no excuse for us if we don't have the communion with Jesus every single Sunday. Verse 30. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away because of me this night, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered." Now that's Zechariah chapter 13 verse 7. Verse 32. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee. Peter answered him, "Though they all fall away because of you, I will never fall away." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even if I must deny you, I will not. Even if I must die with you, I will not deny you." And all the disciples said the same. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to his disciples, "Sit here, while I go over there and pray." And taking with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, that's James and John, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me." And going a little farther, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and said to Peter, "So you could not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Remember, if you don't live the Christian life exactly like Jesus wants you to, remember that Jesus knows we are weak. He understands that. Verse 42. Not that he accepts it, by the way, he understands it. Again, the second time, he went away and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." I believe Jesus is more worried about the fact that his Father is going to turn his back on him, that he who has no sin is going to take on the sin of the entire world. He's more concerned about that than the way he's going to die, the excruciating agony of his death. That's bad, but the fact that he would have to take sin, that was worse to him. Verse 43. And again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the 3rd time, saying the same words again. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Sleep and take your rest later on. See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." While he was still speaking, Judas came, one of the 12, with him a great crowd with swords and clubs, from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Seize him." And he came up to Jesus, and at once he said, "Greetings, Rabbi." And he betrayed Jesus with a kiss. Can you believe that? And he kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you came to do." Then they came up and laid hands on Jesus and seized him. And behold, one of those who were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. So that's Peter cutting off Malchus's ear, and Jesus putting the ear back. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send more than 12 legions of angels? But how then should the scriptures be fulfilled, that it must be so?" At that hour Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out against me, a robber, with swords and clubs to capture me? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But all this has taken place that the scripture of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then all the disciples left him and fled. And there he is betrayed by all. Verse 57. Then those who had seized Jesus led him to Caiaphas the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had gathered. And Peter was following him at a distance as far as the courtyard of the high priest, and going inside he sat with the guards to see the end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were seeking false testimony against Jesus, that they might put him to death. But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At last 2 came forward and said, "This man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to rebuild it in 3 days. And the high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer to make? What is it that these men testify against you?" But Jesus remained silent. Reminds me of Isaiah chapter 53. And the high priest said to him, "I adjure you by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "You have said so. But I tell you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his robes and said, "He has uttered blasphemy. What further witness do we need? You have now heard his blasphemy. What is your judgment?" They answered, "He deserves death." They spit in his face and struck him. And some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy to us, you Christ. Who is it that struck you?" Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came up to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before them all, saying, "I do not know what you mean." And when he went out to the entrance, another servant girl saw him, and said to the bystanders, This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you too are one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, "I do not know the man." And immediately the rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. When you think about the communion of Jesus and how precious that communion is, and as you sit down every Sunday and you break the bread together with Jesus and the Father and the Holy Church, think about these words. "When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss and pour contempt on all my pride." I think Isaac Newton had it right when he wrote this beautiful song. I pray that you will never again miss taking the Lord's Supper with the Father, with the Son. God bless you as you seek to obey Him and not the traditions of man.